They say you can judge a person by the car they're driving, and I'm guilty of doing just that. And heck, feel free to do it at me, because I've owned about every vehicle out there. Hey, and welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson, on this great conditions called snow. Now, this week's a little bit different because I'm not behind the wheel of the typical minivan nor oversized SUV, but instead something that really takes the sun out in these kind of conditions. In these snowy conditions, we need a little bit of sun on us, and what better way to do it here with a yellow exterior on the 2015 Ford Mustang. Now, this one's all redesigned. You're not going to see anything pretty much from where we've been, and we actually draw a little bit on the past for what's under that hood. Now, during this week, I kind of felt the stares, the glares, and kind of the occasional ooh la la. Now, it didn't have anything to do with me, but really what I was behind the wheel in. Now, first things before we get into all the speed and the muscle behind this car, the first thing I want to talk about is the exterior color. I feel it's the right choice. Yellow in the environment we have right now is even better. And best of all, I feel like black may have been too much considering the black wheels, the black trim, and really gray and white are for people that can't make a decision. Anytime you look at a redesign, you really got to start at the front, because after all, that's where the grille warfare is. Now, as for chrome, you're only going to find it here on the Mustang and a little bit on the back end, pretty much body color all the way around with a little bit of black accents. Now, when you look at the total front design, it really slopes out with this shark bite grille and again this lower fascia. Now, one thing to talk about here on this EcoBoost model, this grille is active, and what that means at higher speeds, this is going to shut off, forcing the air around, because after all, the engine's not going to need it right then. Now, another nice feature they do is way down here on the sides, they've actually got a slit allowing that airflow to kind of direct through the fascia and into the wheel well and go around it. Now, it's going to help a little bit more with aerodynamics and make this vehicle kind of slip through the wind. Now, a lot of vehicles are going throwback Thursday headlights with the old cylinder design, something you see like on the Challenger and even last year's model. But here on the Mustang for 2015, they've gone with more of a menacing, sweeping headlight design. And what I refer to it as is the Mona Lisa's eyes, because anytime you walk by this vehicle, I feel like these headlights are looking right at you. When you look at the redesigned hood, what you're going to notice is instead of a fully raised center, it actually features kind of two spikes that run equally down the vehicle. Now, what that does is really set it off, and when you're behind the wheel, you almost feel like you're riding on the back of a manta ray. And in some cases, what I refer to, it rises off just as much as Mr. T's hairdo. Now, you may not think of the Mustang as a snowmobile, but on a day like this, it doesn't hurt to know what's at the four corners. Now, on this particular model, we have the Performance 255 40s, and it comes on 19-inch wheels. Now, those are the upgrades. You can even go 20-inch, but standard are 17 or 18. Now, what's interesting is under the hood, this is the EcoBoost model, and it falls kind of in the middle range of horsepower, which we'll get into a minute. Even better, you get better rims than even the V6. Now, the Mustang spent hours and hours in the wind tunnel test, really to take every detail to the next level. Now, we'll get into the design in just a second, but it all came down to the littlest details, and really right here at the mirror is just one of them. What they did is actually, instead of mounting this to the body, put it here on the door. Really helps that wind come right down this body. Now, looking at the overall numbers, pretty much the Mustang stays true to last year's numbers. I actually got trimmed just a hair by 0.2 inches, so not really enough to talk about. But one thing to talk about really is the overall height, dropping 1.4 inches, which to me is pretty substantial and really makes for it looking a lot more planted to the ground, which is more than evident with the mere fractions of an inch it snugs the road. Now, when you look at the rear end, this has got to be one of the biggest and widest additions, because after all, it actually gained 2 inches back here compared to the front. The front, stayed the same. And what you're going to notice is it flares out and may catch a guy's eye. Now, what's great on the Mustang, the designers put as much emphasis here on the back end as they did on the overall design, and what that comes to mean is, of course, that wider track, these nice haunches, and this sloping roofline that really couples here at the rear end. Now, we'll talk about that EcoBoost in a minute, but I had kind of a nostalgic throwback when you talk about a 2.3 under the hood. If you remember the early 80s, this is where kind of the design all fell apart. Now, that was that dual spoiler-like design. Well, if you look here, you can't find it, and maybe that's because they want you to forget about it and really look at the new design. Now, the spoiler that's built in here maybe could just be the deck lid. It's just raised just a little bit, has a nice arch. Now, what I really like is the stacked vertical 3 taillights on both sides and this high gloss black insert, again bringing all the body color and that black accents throughout the vehicle. Now, while the Mustang didn't grow at all and actually shrunk, what grew a little bit was cargo space. Now, it's not at the forefront of importance on a vehicle like this, but while we're back here, we might as well talk about it. Now, it does come with, of course, a smart key system. And what's interesting back here, well, there's no traditional handle. I couldn't find it anywhere, and that comes a little cumbersome should you need to access this trunk with ease, but pretty much go to the key fob, double press, and it's going to open right up. Now, when you swing this up, what's great is it's going to have decent cargo at about 13.5 cubic feet of space. And what that means, well, it's grown a little bit and heck rivals a mid-size sedan. Now, I hinted at the 4-cylinder of the hood, and what's surprising is we still get dual exhaust back here. Now, when you talk about safety, really this has it all. It has the backup sensors, the backup camera, and what that all means, well, you better not hit anything because they pretty much warned you long before you hit the gas. When you hear 2.3 liter 4-cylinder, well, really don't draw on the past because this has really come a long way. Now, back in the good old days, there might have been more stigma with it because after all, everyone wanted that true 5.0. But in this case, this engine truly delivers far from the past. And when you look at data sheets, really you're going to expect the 4-cylinder V6 and V8 kind of in order of power. Well, not the case here. The 4-cylinder falls right in the middle. Now, when you look at the horsepower numbers, the 4-cylinder really shines, delivering around about 310 horses and 320 foot-pounds of torque. That compared to the V6 has decent horsepower, around about 300, but foot-pounds drop to about 280. Now, of course, there's a GT model out there kind of still hang around with that 5.0 V8 engine, and sure enough delivers great horsepower, around about 435 horses and 400 foot-pounds of torque. With snow on the road and slick tires behind you, well, it's kind of hard to get 0 to 60 numbers, but what's really great, this test model came with the 6-speed manual transmission. Of course, you can go with an automatic. Now, the automatic does offer the paddle shifters, so I'm going to let you do the time trials and actually show you how you can do that inside. Now, one place you want to be on a day like this has to be on the inside, and let's talk about numbers. Well, when you're in a coupe, what does it really feel like? Well, up front on this one, feels a lot more plentiful because heck, it's grown by 2 inches when it comes to leg room. Now, up front, that means 44.5 inches. Now, the back has grown just a hair, averaging just about 30 inches, just the same. Now, what does that mean at the end of the day? Well, a little bit of a knee bleeding in the back to be expected, and plenty of room to stretch out up front. Now, there are some old school designs built into this new look, and really right here is what I'm referring to in the good old gauges. Now, this is the oil pressure PSI and the boost PSI, and they of course respond when you hit the gas. Now, when you sweep down, this is an old school but way cutting edge. And what I'm referring to really is the huge LCD screen. Now, what I like is right here, this is full screen function, but better yet is go to the 4-quadrant system. Now, what this does is give you a lot of information on the screen. Now, if you do need to see one little area, simply press it. It's going to zoom it in, allow you to use the functions, simply press the home and go back. Now, pretty much I leave it at this, and it really makes use real easy. Now, when you look down below, pretty much minimal controls down below it. The volume control, huge tune select, and a few other functions. Otherwise, pretty much leave it to the screen. Now, swinging down to the climate controls, what I like is knobs have been replaced more with kind of a toggle-like system. Now, they do have the gradients here to let you know if you're heating it up or cooling it down. And as you go up or down, the climate control on this touchscreen will give you a digital readout of what you're setting it at. Now, to the left on this model and to the right are the heated and cooled down seats. They have a low, medium, high setting, and pretty much all this is very minimal and getting rid of a lot of clutter. Now, below that, again, is kind of a throwback, the old toggle switches that you would think would either handle light controls or something, but they're a little bit more specific than that. And what you find is, of course, hazard lights, traction control off, but what I like about these two modes, they relate to the driving. Now, this is kind of the comfort for the steering wheel, giving you a selection between comfort, normal, and sport. Now, over here is the driving dynamics, giving you a selection between normal, sport plus, track, and winter mix. Now, of course, we left it on that winter mix for what we got going on right now. Now, while a lot of manufacturers go into a digital readout for their tach and speedometer, well, not here. They pretty much keep it analog. Now, in between those gauges, though, is kind of new school thinking. Now, we talked about the track system earlier, where you can put this vehicle kind of in a special mode. Well, it all relates right here. Now, what it means is pretty much you can set the track and utilize these gauges in the middle. Now, what you'll notice is the accelerometer, and what I like to use is the acceleration timer. Now, what that does is pretty much once you're in track mode, you have these various selections, 0 to 30, 0 to 60, time trials that the vehicle will automatically set in various situations. Now, pretty much you have the automatic start, or you have the countdown start, almost like you're at the track. Now, of course, I highly recommend you not do this between stoplights, but should you want to use it, simply put it there, rev the engine, and hit the gas. On the steering wheel, you're going to find tons of buttons, and they're going to really home in on what you use every day, from the phone, volume control, and over there on the cruise, and of course those mode selects we talked about earlier. Now, this does have smart key system with the proximity entry, and that pretty much means you got to locate the start stop button, and you're going to find that really way down low on the dash. And this may be something you want to kind of locate early, because the key system does come with a traditional key, which sent me for a loop and sent me searching for a place to put it. But actually, in actuality, you're only going to find that there on the glove compartment. As for connectivity, you pretty much have the Bluetooth system that interacts with the entertainment, but you also have in the center console a USB connection, inline jack, and of course a power outlet. Now, the SD reader, we did note, had the mapping system for the navigation, so of course it was off limits. Now, if you want another USB, you'll find it tucked underneath the toggle switches on the dash. That does it for this edition of Road Warrior and our test drive behind the wheel of the 2015 Ford Mustang EcoBoost Edition. Now, when you hear four-cylinder and Mustang, usually they're in separate conversations, but I must admit, I was a believer. Now, again, that horsepower numbers beat the V6 and falls a little bit short of the GT, of course, and what we really liked is that sport-inspired interior and a lot of new innovations, of course, you're going to find on the dash. Now, as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheels and eyes straight ahead.